we're not okay. I look into your eyes and see you fade away. No, we're not the same. It's like we're on two sides of the Milky Way. Somehow we got used to the problems. Baby, we got used to falling. I'm tired of feeling blue when I lose myself to love. Yeah, I just wanna lose my breath. Yeah, I just wanna lose my breath. Yeah, I just wanna lose my breath. Yeah, I just wanna.
Hello. Before I start to rock on the Timsok Ts 316, I realized the other day that I pull up this logo and I talk about this Canucks Audioholics Anonymous review group. And I just want to stay that straight up. What that is for me and what it means to you, probably nothing. But for me, it's a bunch of friends. And what we do, we're all Canadians and we get stuff in, we buy stuff, we get stuff, and we share. And that's how we get to experience more things and have a broader library that goes in our ears. And we're just a bunch of audiophiles. We're not associated with anyone. We're not affiliated with anyone. We're not sponsored by anyone. We're just a bunch of guys who love music. Now that I got that cleared up, let's talk about the SOC. And this is the Timsok single dynamic driver, the TS316. Now this one came out and it was around $5.99, so $600, and on sale for $500. And if you haven't seen one of these things, they are stunning. They're a stunning fingerprint magnet, but I don't care. You also see this sometimes on sale for $4.99. And so this isn't a super cheap single dynamic. It's not your $20 special, and it doesn't sound like that either. Now, inside of this is a 10.2 millimeter dynamic driver. It's not super sensitive, but I will tell you that it does love power, and if you don't put power to this, you're not gonna get the good impressions that it deserves. So, a couple things. The packaging and all that other happy jazz is gorgeous. Like, the presentation is pretty neat. Inside you get a nice little case and 3 little pockets as cable tips and accessories. All first class. For $500, you're $600 even. You're getting your full money's worth in your presentation if that's your shtick. I will tell you that the factory cable, though it sounds pretty fabulous, it's kind of like this one came with the 4.4 fabric coated cable, 2-pin. It's a little bit stiff for me, so when it goes in and I put them in my ears, the ear hooks don't quite go around. So I ended up using a different cable that I thought paired better anyway. But the factory cable would be fine. But if again, $600, you just might want a cable roll just a little bit, you know? So on my set, I also did the normal playing around with the ear tips, and I will pronounce this correctly today. It is the C.A.A.R.G H570, and you pronounce that F-E-A-U-L-L-E, and I buy them on Amazon, AliExpress, and I like them. They're kind of sticky, like an Osla crystal, maybe a little softer, and they do a flare out kind of like this. So they really sound good for vocals, and that's why I use them. My cable of choice happened to be an IVIPQ, in a 4.4 that they made for me. And this is a pure silver / palladium cable, though I have my doubts because normal silver cables kind of kill the bass, where this actually doesn't at all. So they can say whatever they want, right? So it's a great sounding cable though on this IM. Let's talk about how the Timsok TS316, I'm just going to call it the Sok from now on, okay? And I also would like to do a comparison later on with the Meze ADVAR and the Simgo EA1000. So different price brackets as well. These ones are a little over 200. Again, you can get these on sale for $4.99. The Soks, and the ADVAR is $6.99, but you can also find them for $500 when they go on sale as well. So the Sok is competing quite in a higher price bracket and performance bracket as well, and we'll talk about that. But how does it sound on its own? Well, if you pick these things up and you dropped your $500, you're going to get bass that is very musical, and you're going to get bass that is organic, and it's going to hit like a truck. Honestly, Will, there's some songs that came on and I was genuinely shocked, and that's kind of why I switched to these ear tips versus the Osla. The Osla basically made it too bassy for me, and that's a weird thing to say for me who loves bass. But I like the overall balancing out with the better vocals with these tips than I did with the Osla. And as we know, tips are going to make probably the biggest difference in your IM and listening impressions. I also did lots of source rolling. X Duo with the Sparkos was there. My Shanling DAP, Ibasso DAP, and then my desktop stacks. One I'm using a full Geshelli with the E3 and J2 with the 4499, but my favorite is the 4493 with the topping A90D, and that I loved a lot, and that really worked well for the Timsok. So it is a non-source dependent IM. It's pretty resolving, so it will change depending on your source, but it worked for all. So except for low power, I don't think a dongle is going to drive these things properly unless it has more than 350 milliwatts. That's just my thoughts. How did mid sound? Well, mids, again, you're source dependent, but really they sounded north of neutral, maybe a touch forward in the mix. And vocals sound really smooth and really clean and really natural on the Sok. It was definitely a standout feature. And when you get into these higher performing dynamic drivers, and don't get me wrong with the EA1000, I love this to bits. But when you're starting to compare with higher end drivers like the Sok and the ADVAR, they aren't competing. Like it's on a next level, absolutely. The naturalness, the organic way it produces vocals and instruments. It actually sounds like it's not trying to, right? It's actually just reproducing music. And all these IMs, most IMs are pretty colored, right? It's just how much do they color it? But instrumental playback is very resolving. It really is. Not as much as the ADVAR, and I'll talk about that in track impressions, but definitely this has a really quality driver in it. It brings instrumentals to life, especially lower strings like cello and double bass. It was a wonderful replay. I did find the Sok a little bit reserved in the upper end where later on I'll show you a graph of the Sok versus the ADVAR and kind of explain a little bit why I thought this one sounded a bit reserved in the airy nuances in the upper registers. It could be more articulated. It could have been more present for my tastes. And speaking of the highs, where the pin again is peaking at about 5K with this one. And if you're sensitive to 5K, you might find it too bright. I didn't at all. It does drop off quite noticeably around the 6 to 7K, which makes the sock very fatigue free, I found. And great, fantastic, actually, for longer listening sessions. You could just totally chill out with this IM. Air detail separation, all are very, very detailed, really amazing. So these are one of these IMs that makes you question whether a single driver can do it all. And I think it can for most. This is not a goat, right? When it comes to air detail separation. But I think the Timsok TS316 did wonders for what it has its capability, what its limit. It worked within its limitations, and the tuners at Timsok really played the 316 to its best attributes, to its best abilities. They juiced it. They got as much out of it as they could, and they did a good job on the tuning. I would say that Timsok TS316 is actually a pretty good all-rounder. It's musical, it's engaging, and it would be one that you would easily pick up and play everything on your in anybody's library, in my opinion. Again, it might not do it to something else, like something with a tri-bid or a hybrid for air details and separation, but just as a pretty good all-rounder. And at its price, it's pretty good. Stage, found this one a little bit more intimate again. Not huge 3D with this IM. If I were comparing this to, again, way level higher in a Soft Ears Twilight, then you understand, stage and 3D and spatial effects and spatial placement and stuff. It was good. It was, again, engaging, musical, and fun. Best way I can describe it. It has an average width, depth, and height in all three axes. Again, not a standout, but again, a fun listen to as well. I think just overall, it's a really good dynamic driver offering. It's unoffensive, it's musical, presents with effortless replay. I want to say that again, just to reiterate that point. And I think it should appeal to a great many people. It really should. With dynamic drivers, there's a lot of people that are not, they look at a single dynamic or hear about a single dynamic driver and they just think it can't perform. And that's totally not true. And I think the SIMGO EA500 kind of changed that a lot for people. It wowed people. It was like, wow, you can actually do this for $80, right? And we were spoiled. For me, under 250, I thought there was also some standouts that came out this year too. The Dunu Falcon Ultra, the EA1000, and the BQEY-Z Wind. I thought all under the 250 category were standout as well. At $500, is it worth it to step up to the TS316? Double what the EA1000 and the Dunu Falcon Ultra? Yep, I think it is. Does it double the performance, though? No, it doesn't. That's your, what is that saying? Diminishing returns. It is certainly a step up, but you don't expect a double of the, even though you're paying double, you're not going to get double the performance. So, but if you have like a Falcon Ultra or a EA1000 and you want to experience what a better dynamic driver is, it would be definitely one to consider. Now, I would definitely look and make sure that it's on sale for the $500 if I were picking one up, because at $600, maybe not. To give you some idea now in this next segment of what it sounded like for me versus. And so let's start with the EA1000 at 200 plus, right? Here I put it on the brand new SIMGOT modular cable that's coming out, and love this cable over stock. And they're listening to people, and they're coming out with now modular and higher end offerings. It's a nice cable. It's a phenomenal cable. Look for it. I have no idea how much it is. They sent this cable to me, and I love it on the EA1000. So they're coming out with a hybrid. Anyway, enough. Back on track, Monk. Over EA1000. Give life back to music. Daft Punk. It's when you listen to the Timsok, it's punchy, it's authoritative, it's clean, and it's smoother and more dynamic than the EA1000, and that was clean, that was clear. It just hit harder and snappier. And this was, of course, I burned this baby in too for about 7 days in total. So 100 plus hours easy. And it did change a lot. Dynamic drivers, I find, do. The EA1000, though, does a better replay if you like electronic music like that. And that flavor in this track, I actually preferred the EA1000. But my overall, if I were listening to a lot, song after song of EDM, I think I would go for the Timsok, because it was just a smoother and a bassier replay with the Sok. So let's talk about some drums and kind of tonality, right? So Congo Blue, Poncho Sanchez. So you hear him listening for the trumpet, the trumpet on the Timsok has amazing details. The drums are, Poncho Sanchez sells his own drums, and that's what he is famous for. And again, it was a clear upgrade to the EA1000 in tonality wise, and what it could bring out emotional wise, that over the less than half price. So, and then I did throw in it, starting at this thing, I started throwing in, okay, what would it sound like versus the ADVAR as well, the Meze. When you listen to the Meze, and say you were to get, if you could pick up the ADVAR at the same price as the Timsok, what would you get? Well, you would get, the ADVAR is like lifting a veil over the sound wall with its resolution. It was then you could start to pick up instrument details that you didn't get or you couldn't pick up with the Timsok. And it was not just that, but it started to play the instruments in its own space in the soundstage, where the Timsok didn't. It kind of just all kind of blended in together. And again, with the EA1000, it's just, the Timsok just sounds way more natural and polished. And with the EA1000, I keep finding, even with the red filters and another nozzle filter on here, it still pushes the mids and vocals forward. And it's kind of funny, again, when I did my review of that, it didn't really sound like that. But when you're comparing it to another IM, then it goes, okay, well, that one, where the Timsok sounded neutral, the EA1000 sounded a bit forward. And it sounded forward, again, a lot more than the ADVAR and the Timsok. Let's talk about D from Aussie. So trying to pull up some resolution here, right? Some how does it sound with the finger slides and the nuances that you could pick up from the playback. The Timsok plays deep in the notes, like with layering. The slides are very resolving. I think with the EA 1000 did pretty damn good. I mean, you get about 80% of what you would get with the Timsok in terms of resolution and detail. So it's it's performing at a very high level as well, but you get 20% more, maybe. That's just a number I came up with. Now versus again the ADVAR. The ADVAR actually sounded a smidge less resolving than the Timsok in this track, but they were very close. It just saying that the Timsok did play at a pretty high level. I mean, it was pretty darn good. Now, In Too Deep, Sum 41. I'm all over the place, right? With my musical library, it's yeah. Does it play rock? Yeah. Oh yeah, very well at really nice volumes. When I mean really nice volumes, I mean really high volumes. And that's, again, because of how smooth it is. You can dial it up, where versus the EA 1000, the vocal forwardness, when you start dialing it up with this track, the bass got really thumpy and not nearly as controlled. Vocals get shouty and not a great replay loud with the SIMGOT. Now versus the ADVAR, the vocals were nailed, were like full on. But overall, for this track, the Timsok I would pick over the ADVAR. And again, it has to do with that upper treble registers and how it's where it's putting the energy. Now, vocals. Some Young San Na and Lento. Awesome track. She's an amazing vocalist. How did the EA 1000 did it very, very nicely. Again, it's a great IM. But the Timsok just did it smoother. It had lower drops. The vocals are way more neutral. And you could really tell where the EA 1000 had a more vocal forwardness. The Timsok played it just as a more natural replay. And again, it had a clear upgrade to dynamics over the EA 1000. Versus the ADVAR again. ADVAR was more resolving. Her voice has more nuances in the voice. You could pick up the subtle details, you know. That was again, I would think the ADVAR is a step up when it came to that track for sure over the Timsok. And doing some more comparison to the ADVAR, because this, I really want to put a little bit more focus on this, because if you could get both at the same price, which one would I pick? Okay. The ADVAR. For me, my taste. Stage is wider. It's more 3D. And for me, I'm a bit of a stage junkie. I just like the way it presents more in a 3D space. And like I said, in that one track where you could pull out instruments in different places. You know, the drums would be over here, the tambourine's over there, and some other instrument I can't name over there, but you could pick them out cleaner and they would play in their own space like the players are playing, where the Timsok would kind of mush it all together a bit. The ADVAR does play, so this is again personal preferences, right? Slightly warmer than the Timsok does. And that, again, I'll pull up that graph now, where it plays, the pin gain is different on both IAMs, and they play, it affects the upper mids and highs, and it affects the vocals and instrumental and what you can pick up and when you can't. So it's hard to recommend one over the other. I mean, I know what my preferences are, and I pick the ADVAR, but you might pick something different as well. And I'm sorry if I'm not trying. We all gonna hear different. We all have personal tastes, so trying to do my best to describe the other two. But on the track like I Forgive You by Miley Cyrus, right? Right at the beginning, there is a weird sound effect right at the beginning that sounds incredibly realistic with the ADVAR, where the sock didn't, you got it, but it didn't move you like the or sound as, you know, listening to the two. And you put on that same track back and forth, and every time you'd listen to that with the ADVAR, you'd get a big grin on your face, because it does something special where the Timsok didn't quite pull it out. I would definitely say overall the ADVAR is a more resolving IM in its overall replays. Over the Timsok, the ADVAR bass is again more resolving. It can pull out more details of nuances of the bass hit and the decay. It just does it in a more natural way, and it got close, much closer with some time on it, with some burn in. But the ADVAR to me has a nicer bass replay. I got Plenty of Nothing. Now, this was a cool track. Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald, right? Two greats. Louis's vocals has more weight and more natural tone, and better for me on the ADVAR than it was on the Timsok. The Timsok stages kind of just outside of your ears, your headspace, where the ADVAR plays beyond that. Wider and deeper, where you can get a sense of depth into the vocals or where they're singing on the stage. And Ella's voice. So in male vocals, I thought the ADVAR wins, and sometimes it happens where the other IM, because of more energy in a different area, sounds better for female vocals. But in this case, Ella Fitzgerald's vocals also sounded better on the ADVAR. That's why they call it the blues, Mr. Elton John and his piano. So again, compared to the two, the Timsok plays vocals a bit more forward than the slightly warmer and slightly more, and they're close, right? So I'm talking very close, but you can tell. Now, this was the difference in when it came to piano playback, right? With Elton's. With the Timsok, it pushed the vocals a bit forward and recessed the piano. And so overall, the ADVAR had more of a reserved vocals, and the piano came out, and the weight of the piano, and overall made the ADVAR a better replay for me and my preferences. I just like the extra weight, and I like and because the vocals were pushed back just a smidge, you could pick up more of the nuances in the bass. The bass hits, the drops were nicer there. So, last couple, I Guess We Are Falling Out by Queen. So the Timsok plays vocals again a little bit more forward. And again, what had happened is it pushes the piano back in the mix. And so two tracks, they were back to back, and I got the same impression with both. Where the ADVAR plays again smoother, it's more balanced and more natural. The bass, the piano, and the vocals, I just sounded to me more natural. I Hate Everybody by Halsey, last track. The Timsok goes low, but misses out on the sustained bass hits that the ADVAR does, and it sustains the hit and the decay. So listening just to the tonality of the dynamic driver and how well it can control the notes and its replay, Again, I found the ADVAR had better control, had better attack, had the nicer decay where you could hear more of the lingering bass drops and still have control. Overall, I just thought the ADVAR was a more resolving, slightly warmer, nicer replay, and that plays into my preferences as well. In conclusion, is spending $600, $500 on this single dynamic driver worth it? I'm not going to say yes or no, but if you're looking for something more resolving, less energy up top than the SIM-GOT still produces, and want more of an all-rounder in a complete package that you could probably listen to a lot of different genres and be happy with for long listening sessions, you might want to consider the Timsok Ts 316. Thank you again. I'm out for now.